What's going on, guys? GamingG 423 here, and today welcome to the third week of the Grotti Turismo World Championship. This week, another interesting week as we progress through the weeks, and this week was a really change of events done on Belligerent streets and made by MoShots again. And this week was really the week where a lot of things did change, and the standings overall changed for all of us, to be honest, and affected everyone in some way. So going into the start of the race, we can see it's going to be raining today, the weather, and this week's first week in the rain, the first hill track as well. The other two have been city tracks. So as we go into the start of the grid after the formation lap, we can see the grenade's going to go off in a few seconds. There it is, and everyone's off. So not getting the best of starts, but you know, Shadows in front of him, McVitie too in front of him, in front of Shadows as well, and someone goes off to the left up a mountain. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, going into the first chicane, everyone let off there, and Mo thought that he would have a few more incidents. Mo thought he'd have a few more incidents on the first chicane, but unfortunately today I had a reserve as I couldn't make the race. But Frostmo did very well for me, and I think he's currently in first right now. He got a really good start off the line, but MoShots in 10th right now, going into the second chicane and up the Pacific Hill, and again there's a huge pack forming, making the track quite claustrophobic with the placement of the barriers and etc. But Mo managing to overtake Vitti on the chicane, but Vitti got the place back, and still in 10th for Mo, and going around into the first half of that pretty much done now, and so again there's a few quite big packs, and if you can see in the mini map up front, Frostmo is in first position, got quite a big gap between the rest of the grid. But Diafu just coming up behind Mo there, and a lot of people found it hard to overtake on this track, especially Mo anyway, because he found it quite a drag, obviously, to try and overtake people, as you have to either wait for them to make a mistake or try and get lucky. But McVitie there actually slightly took him out, but Sign had to wait for someone, and he moved off to the left, allowing Diver to take the position over Mo. We're going out into the third deadly chicane, I think, and this one caused the most issues out of all of them, to be honest. So as you can see there, Mo gets quite a nice run on Diafu and takes him quite a nice overtake as Diafu hits the wall. So going on to the long straight before the hairpin now, we can see Mo trying to chase down the bigger pack, but there's quite a controversial incident at this hairpin point. There's a huge clusterfuck, and so it allows Mo to gain a bit more time on that pack. So yeah, as you can see, it's still a huge pack, and Frostmore in the lead still, with a comfortable gap, to be honest. So going into the next lap, we can see that this is the second lap of the official race, because the first one was formation lap. So as you can see, there's still quite a big pack going on in front of Mo and behind him, so he's really stuck in the middle between them. And as you can see, there are Shadows right ahead of him, and I believe there's a few incidents here where Mo almost gets the run on Funky Expert because he kind of hits the rock and spins slightly, but he couldn't grab the position. He just about grabs the position, and Expert goes flying off. I'm not sure what happened to him exactly, but again, Mo is just trying to chase down the positions, trying to get into the front pack. And see there a few incidents there, and Frostmo having a huge lead, so Mo needs to start getting his pace up and trying to get to the front of the grid. Managed to grab the position with Shadows there. But moving on to a bit later in the race, where Diafu is on his inside just before the downhill chicane, and Mo backs off. He hits the barrier, hits Diafu, Sign goes into him, and there's a huge domino effect with Shadows and Mo probably the worst outcomes, to be honest. And Mo had to wait for everyone, so it was pretty shocking, really, that incident. That was kind of a really awkward incident. And now Diafu going into Shadows. I think Diafu accidentally takes out Shadows here, but from this, Mo actually it's a huge clusterfuck. There's losing a lot of time. Mo's down into 10th position, so not looking too good for him at the moment. So as he tried to get the inside on both Shadows and Diafu, Diafu suddenly braked on the racing line, so it was a bit of a controversial moment, but you know. So Mo knew at this point he had to start getting up his paces, somehow get past Diafu, and going through into the next lap, well, the same lap but half a lap later, Mo decides to go for his early pit, because he knew there's a pack in front of him, and he thought he might as well outrun him, because he knew how to pace on this track. So as you can see, they're leaving on 2 minutes 13. We can expect some really good pace from Mo. He's producing, because he's got all this space now, and he's out of the pack. So he's going to try and get his pace going, and see if he can try and overtake the other guys in front of him. So going past down into the downhill chicane, very tricky chicane actually. But anyway, as you can see there, end of the last pit window, we can see a huge pile up in the pit window, and he managed to grab 5 positions. It was absolutely amazing. He had some really good pace and got a really good pit strategy for the first pit window. So you can see they're going, Expert managed to grab the position though. He didn't get 4th, but he knows 4th is there. And because Expert's trying to defend the inside, Mo does a really nice cutback on Expert and gets the 4th position. As you can see in front of him, McVitie and Shadows need to yet to pit. So he knows that he has time to catch up to both Shadows and McVitie. So yeah, again, as I said, really good pit strategy by Mo. Absolutely impeccable. You know, he had a really good run with some space, and when it came to the end of the pit window, he managed to do really well. So going into the 6th lap of the race, we can see again he's pulling a gap between all the others. So he did have the pace, but he wasn't able to produce it when he was stuck behind all the people. So again, I think that this is where Mo's first mistake, and it almost goes off the mountain there, luckily. But Enforcer does pass him, losing a position to him. But he manages to eventually gain that back when he does another move similar to the move that he did on Funk Your Expert a few laps earlier. We're going into the downhill chicane. Enforcer takes the inside line, tries to hold it on the defensive move, and Mo does a beautiful cutback once again. Does that same move. McVitie goes wide, and he manages to grab 2 positions there. So now into 3rd. Shadows and McVitie now are pitted. So the pit windows have ended. And now at this point, Mo's going to try and catch down Shadows, but Enforcer and McVitie still behind him. So he has to be cautious of that. But he knew that he could get away because he had a really good pace on this. Setting some good lap times with like a 2 minute 30s sort of area, and or 2 minute 40s I think. And so yeah, going into the next lap, we can see, I'll show you the standings now actually for the before and the after. So after the pit window, this was the current standings. Frostmore in 1st, Shadow 2nd, Mo in 3rd, Enforcer, McVitie, Sign, Kenroy, Expert, Diafu, Copyright, Blaze, Crumbly, Stig, Gesso, and the Gaddick one. So after that pit, we go into another lap, and as you can see that skipping through the laps, you can clearly see that the gap is closing between him and Shadows, and he really is starting to pace down. But about half a lap later, into lap 10, Mo does try to go into the pits early, try and outrun Shadows that way, because he knew again he had the pace on this track. So going to try and outrun Shadows. So waiting is 30 seconds, and all that catching down was very hard work for Mo. And now into 6th position because of the 30-second pit. Mo put a lot of effort into trying to catch down Shadows. He's really pushing his lap times. And unfortunately, straight after the 2nd pit window, goes into the chicane and absolutely destroys it. Awful moment for Mo. All that hard work went to nothing for Shadows. So now he it's kind of unfortunate for the race, but you know, it happens. I guess you have to pick yourself up, still keep going. But going on into the final hairpin for the lap, we can see that Mo is kind of frustrated at this point, going through his mind, but he knows he can still get a good few positions because people are yet to pit from their most people in front of him are yet to pit. So again, going into the I believe it's about the 10th lap or so, and no, 11th lap, and then going through a few laps later, skipping through, he and Daifu come to a pretty nice battle. Actually, they have a quite a long battle for about 2 or 3 laps, but at this point Mo is getting very well, not at this point, but at a few laps later especially, he starts to get very frustrated, as he knows he can get a few overtaking moves on Daifu, but he's just kind of, he's defending very well, as well as a few unfortunate incidents that happened to him, which cause him to slow down a lot to Shadows, and eventually Shadows does start to pull away from him. But as you can see, they're passing the people in the pits. Now it's down to Daifu and Mo to have the battle. You know, Daifu is 3rd place and Mo is in 4th, so he knows he can get back to the same position that he did, but almost taking Daifu out there. Luckily manages, but the gap does increase at this point. And once again, Daifu just slowing down very much, so Mo's pace is very slow at this point, and he knows that if he stays behind Daifu for too long, he'll get stuck and won't be able to catch up to Shadows. So, but this apparently does last for quite a long time, and these 4 laps or so, I think it was the battle, and it took a while for Mo to finally overtake him and actually try and get into 3rd position, trying to catch Shadows. But at this point, the 2nd pit window are closing at this on lap 14. They do close, and show you the current standings again for the 2nd pit window. So Shadows in 1st, Frosman 2nd, Daifu 3rd, Mo in 4th, Enforcer in 5th, Kenrai, McVitie, Stig, Sign, Copyright, Blaze, Expert, JSO, Crumbly, and the Delgadic one. So again, a few positions changing there, but not too many. But going through, skipping through, in a few laps later, Daifu eventually does crash, and Mo gets his 3rd position after about 2 more laps after that. And so now Mo has some open space to try and you know, at least hold his 3rd position. You know, skipping through the laps now into 17 and continuing on into 18. But yeah, as I said, it was very frustrating race for Mo. He was doing very well, but he got caught up in a lot of traffic between the start. But if he had not gone up in so much traffic, he might have actually got out with a very good result, maybe even 2nd. Okay, so now we go into the last lap of the race, and as Mo stated in his commentary, you cannot script this race. This race was an absolute one of the best we've seen so far out of the first 3 weeks, and it was just due to this moment, really. I mean, no one could have ever predicted this. So as we see there, Mo in a comfortable 3rd position. I mean, I don't think he has any chance of catching Shadows now due to it being the last lap, but he does have a huge, well, a fairly significant gap on 4th place, Daifu. And as you can see, they're going through the corners fairly straightforward, but he takes quite a bad line here, I think, and he almost messes up, but this bad line causes him to, on the last lap, to actually do this. As an awful moment. So he's already lost a position here. He's about to lose a position. If he had got back up straight away, he would have made it, but he couldn't get back up onto the track. It's a joke. And then he's look, you can see the positions in the bottom right. It's just slowly degrading, and it's doing awful. He can't get up the mountain, and again, he's like, oh shit, and into 8th position now. Yeah, 7th position actually does mess up, and it could have allowed him to go out of position, but he does this and loses another position into 9th. I mean, this is a joke. You can't script it. This is absolutely very heartbreaking for Mo, as he would have expected to be, but at the same time very action-packed for all of us. And so going into the last lap, he pretty much stays like this till the end. As you can see, that Shadows does eventually go on to win the race, taking over Frostmo's significant lead at the start of the race. But Frostmo does finish in 2nd, my reserve, who gets me 18 points, so that puts me up in the table for a few more points. But Mo, even if he had made 3rd, he would have had a comfortable victory for this week. I mean, would have been very easy. He would have had a comfortable championship gap. He would be in 1st, but at this point, Shadows does eventually go into 1st in the overall championship table. And it's unfortunate for Mo, but things happen, I guess, and just need to pick himself back up, have confidence in the next week. And he actually does overshoot this hairpin hugely, and 10th just coming around there. If he didn't hit the barrier, Mo was actually quite lucky. He might have only got 10th and only get 1 point. But from this, Mo, after all the hard work, only gets 2 points, although he deserves much more. But really unfortunate, you know. I guess it's a lack of concentration. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week for Sandy Shores GP, and see you.
Welcome to the 2-minute 34 club.
35? Get my phone out, that's a record.
Whoever's arguing just has to go do a match of arm wrestling, and whoever wins.
Wait, I wanna go join. Wait.
Can I just say, we held all 15 people.